All right, today we're going to break down one of the most fascinating military showdowns in all of history, the Siege of Sai. Seriously, this thing is an absolute masterclass in strategy, raw ingenuity, and just unbreakable will. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want you to just picture this for a second. You're standing on the walls of your home, your city, and down below you see an army gathering, an army that outnumbers you 10-1. Surrender? Not an option. So what's the play? What do you do?
Well, that totally impossible-sounding scenario, that's exactly what the defenders of Sai were up against. This wasn't just a simple clash of swords and shields. No. This was a battle of wits, a brutal, high-stakes chess match where the deadliest weapon on the board wasn't a sword, it was creativity.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Section 1, a war at the gates. You know the classic story, right? The irresistible force meeting the immovable object. This is it, in real life.
So, to really get inside the head of the attacking army, just listen to this line from their general's memoirs. He wrote, "A wall is a challenge. It taunts the proud and tests the patient. Siane had the highest walls I had ever seen." You see, for them, this wasn't just some tactical objective on a map. It was personal. It was this giant monument of defiance that they just had to tear down.
Which brings us right to Section 2, Fortress versus Force. Let's really analyze the odds here, for both sides, before a single stone was even thrown.
So you've got this incredible contrast, right? On one hand, the invaders. They have overwhelming numbers, solid supply lines, and just a terrifying collection of siege engines. We're talking pure brute force. But then you have the defenders of Sai. They were anything but helpless. They had these incredible fortifications, they knew the local terrain like the back of their hand, and they had that one X factor you just can't manufacture, the sky-high morale that comes from defending your own home.
And this number right here, this really puts it all into perspective. 10-1. Just think about that. For every single person defending that wall, there were 10 soldiers out there trying to get in. It's a staggering, almost hopeless ratio, and it influenced every single decision they made.
So, with a fortress like Sai, where do you even start? How do you crack that nut? Well, that brings us to Section 3, the Attacker's Playbook. This is the step-by-step guide on how to break the unbreakable.
Okay, so the invading army's whole strategy was built on 3 main pillars. First up, isolation. You cut the city off from everything. No food, no water, no reinforcements. You basically try to starve them out. Then comes pillar 2, attrition. This is the slow grind. You just use your massive numbers and your artillery to wear them down day after day after day. You exhaust them physically and mentally. And only then, when they're at their absolute breaking point, do you unleash the third pillar, the final overwhelming assault.
And the tools they used for this war of attrition? I mean, they were absolutely terrifying. You had torsion engines like the ballista. Think of it as a giant, hyper-accurate crossbow for picking defenders right off the walls. Then you had tension engines, like catapults, built for one thing and one thing only, smashing stone walls into rubble. And then you had the king of the battlefield, the counterweight trebuchet. This beast could hurl enormous rocks over huge distances, which is devastating, city-shaking power.
But you know, maybe the most terrifying tactic wasn't the brute force from the outside. It was the stealthy approach from below, a tactic called sapping. And it's exactly what it sounds like, the art of undermining your enemy's greatest strength, their wall, by digging a secret tunnel right underneath its foundations.
And the way they did it was just chillingly methodical. Step 1. The sappers dig an approach trench, which lets them get to the base of the wall without being seen. Step 2. They start tunneling directly under the foundations. Now, to keep it from collapsing on top of them, they brace the whole thing with huge wooden beams. That's step 3. And then comes the final, genius, devastating move. They pack the end of the tunnel with flammable material, set it on fire, and run. As those wooden supports burn away, the tunnel collapses, and it brings a whole section of the wall crashing down with it.
So while all this is happening, the walls getting pounded, the ground being dug out from under them, there was a whole other war going on, a battle for the mind. The attackers were masters of psychological warfare. They'd launched messages over the walls, things designed to just crush the morale of the people inside. See, the goal wasn't just to break the stone of the fortress, it was to break the will of its defenders, to make them believe that all hope was gone.
So how in the world did Sai fight back against all this? That takes us to Section 4, the defender's stand. This is where ingenuity becomes its own kind of weapon.
I mean, think about it. How do you fight an enemy you can't see who's digging right under your feet? Well, the answer is you dig back. It was called counter-mining. The defenders would literally put their ears to the ground, listen for the faint sounds of digging, and then start their own tunnel to intercept the enemies. And this led to some of the most horrific fighting imaginable. Blind, desperate battles in pitch-black, cramped tunnels deep underground.
And back up on the walls, the defenders had their own toolkit of deadly tricks. They weren't just sitting there. They were pouring boiling oil and hot sand down on the attackers, stuff that could get inside armor in a way a blade couldn't. They used these huge grappling hooks to literally grab onto siege ladders and just flip them over. And their archers, they had a massive home field advantage. They'd already measured the distance to every key spot on the battlefield, so the ground below became this perfectly calculated kill zone.
To really get a feel for the intensity, let's just walk through a single day, the day of the Grand Assault. At 6 in the morning, dawn breaks and the bombardment starts, shaking the entire city. By 10 a.m., the massive siege towers are slowly, unstoppably reaching the walls. At 2 in the afternoon, the fighting is at its absolute peak, and that's when the defenders unleash their fire weapons. And then finally, at 6 p.m., the attackers, battered, bloody, and broken, are forced to pull back. The city has survived for one more night.
So what was the final outcome of this incredible, brutal conflict? Well, that brings us to our last section, the siege's echo, the lessons that were forged in all that fire.
Believe it or not, the Siege of Sai literally changed the future of military architecture. To deal with that terrifying threat of sapping, architects started designing fortresses with much, much deeper foundations. And inspired by how tough Sai was to crack, they started building defenses in layers, walls within walls. Militaries also realized they needed specialized engineering units, soldiers whose job wasn't just to fight, but to be experts in building and destroying.
But really, in the end, the siege taught everyone this one timeless lesson, and this quote sums it up perfectly. Victory in a siege is not about breaking walls, but about breaking will. The invaders had all the power they needed to break stone, sure, but they just could not break the spirit of the people inside.
And that really brings us right up to today, doesn't it? The stone walls might be gone, but we have our own kinds of unbreakable walls now. Think about digital firewalls or economic sanctions or even our own information bubbles. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What are the modern tactics being used to lay siege to these walls? And maybe more importantly, what can the incredible ingenuity of Sai's defenders teach us about how to hold the line?